say hello, hello. It's a very, very strange. People are very, very interested with that and very pleased. It's like a show, a permanent show, paid by Airbus.
So far, this roadshow has had an exotic appeal. But will they still be clapping when convoys like this grind through town once a week? Ultimately, that's the pace Airbus will have to keep if they're to meet their manufacturing targets. At last, the convoy arrives at its destination, the final assembly line, the nerve center of the entire operation. The final assembly line sits on the edge of Toulouse's Blagnac Airport. As with all A380 factories, this one is huge. 500 meters long by 250 meters wide and 15 stories tall. 32,000 tons of steel, enough to build 3 Eiffel Towers. It's in here that the massive plane finally begins to take shape, with the help of a gargantuan assembly structure known as a jig. According to Julien Pouillou, there's nothing else like it in the world.
We're standing in front of the biggest jig that is used in the world to assemble an aircraft. This is the Station 40.
Station 40 is where the fuselage, wings and tail all come together. The one-of-a-kind jig stands 5 stories tall, weighs 1,200 tons, and comes equipped with 4 elevators to carry workers to their stations. This is where theory becomes reality. As pieces made all over the world finally come together. If there's been any error, if the pieces don't measure up to spec, or if the joints don't come together just right, within millimeters, the huge passenger craft won't be fit for flying. The lives of future passengers depend on the steady hands of these craftspeople and engineers, working inside the mighty Station 40.
The challenge is for us to assemble those pieces together at the same time, because we have a lot of workers working in the same area at the same time, and they have to do all sorts of completely different tasks. One has to take care of the wings and one has to take care of the fuselage, and so they are not doing the same job, but they have to do it together.
Work on this plane now proceeds at an intense pace. It'll take 4 weeks to complete the assembly. Once the plane has been released from Station 40, it moves through a pair of 100-meter wide sliding doors and makes its way to the systems hall. Inside this gigantic space, 3 A380s can sit side by side comfortably, while technicians swarm over the superstructure, testing the electrical, hydraulic and plumbing systems that'll bring the dormant aircraft to life. Building just one A380 is a massive job, but for Airbus to survive, they're going to have to speed up production to a breakneck pace. Eventually, the Station 40 team will have to crank out a defect-free plane every week. But before that can happen, the plane must be proven airworthy. Now all eyes are on the skies over southern France, as the gathered crowd wonders, will the A380 survive its maiden flight? At Blagnac Airport in Toulouse, 40,000 people anxiously scan the skies, searching for some sign of the A380. All flights in and out of the airport are put on hold. The skies over Toulouse are eerily quiet. Nearly 4 hours have passed since takeoff. If all goes as planned, the huge airliner should swing into view at any moment. But if there's a problem, the flight crew will quickly discover how well their training has prepared them for disaster. Much of that training took place using powerful computers, programmed to mimic the behavior of the A380. That's the theory anyway. In a simulator like this one, with a computational engine 500 times more powerful than a home video game console, photorealistic visuals help pilots to get a feel for the plane. Despite the A380's unprecedented size, Airbus engineers have tried to make it fly like any other airliner.
100 knots.
The task of testing the verisimilitude of the simulator experience rests on the shoulders of pilot Claude Holmbeck.
I would say that it's exactly as a conventional aircraft. And it's quite amazing because this aircraft is so big and so heavy. This surprised most of people, and especially pilots.
One of the most important functions of simulators is to give pilots the chance to flirt with disaster.
Very simple, and one engine is shut off. This is the engine number 4, and look what is happening. The aircraft is just moving slowly on the right side.
It would take a lot more than an engine failure to knock this monster out of the sky. But test engineers are nothing if not imaginative, and they've loaded their simulators with more than 400 different catastrophe scenarios. Everything from a fire in the cargo hold to a devastating lightning strike. The exercises are useful, but no computer can simulate the awesome responsibility of shepherding 550 passengers through the stratosphere.
The challenge is to fly with many passengers. I think this is the greatest challenge, yes.
Outside, all eyes are on the sky. The weight is excruciating. Then, a glint of reflected light. At last, the mega plane sails into view. Eager reporters and photographers race to the edge of the tarmac to record this historic moment. A showy flyby excites the crowd. Makes a steep turn, lines up with the runway, begins final descent. Then, at long last, touchdown. Like astronauts returning from space, the pilots and the flight engineers greet the crowd. It's now one for the record books. If nothing else, the A380 is a public relations success. Journalists from around the world scramble to file their stories. Chief architect of the entire project, Charles Champion, is proud and relieved.
I think it was a great moment of emotion, and somehow we did it. You know, it's alive. It's alive.
They've proven that the plane can fly, but that may have been the easy part. At the time of the test flight, Airbus had 154 orders and still needed 96 more just to break even. To fill those orders, they must dramatically increase the speed of production and convince the world's airlines to pay nearly $300 million for each plane. But even while potential customers were lining up to drool over decor, and the engineering team was still basking in the afterglow of the successful first flight, Airbus surprised the industry when it unexpectedly announced a 6-month delay in the delivery of the first aircraft. Early customers who took the risk and put down deposits before the first plane had ever been built are not happy. Some analysts believe the plane is still heavier than Airbus promised, but Airbus insists that the delay is merely routine.
The real achievement will be when the customer says, "Great, this is what I expected, I love it, give me more."
If the last 40 years in the history of aviation is any guide, and more people fly further and more often, year after year, then Charles Champion's daring bet may well pay off, and the A380 just might become the flagship of commercial aviation well into the 21st century.